20. Exodus chapter 20 is where we're at today. And so if you're in the English Standard Version, you can join me there. If you're in another version, you can join me there as well. Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20. And so, man, today's message, it inspired me to think about the first thing that I do every morning. And I don't know about you guys, but in my line of living, the first thing I do every morning, can I show you what it is? Is what I do. Every morning, y'all see me? I'm on Twitter and I'm scrolling. I see what Vala Ashfar has to say. I scroll, I see all the latest gossip of the day. Oh, gotta know what Duke Quan has to say. Barstool, Mina Harris, gotta know what she has to say. Oh, that looked like something I shouldn't be looking at. I scroll through, right? Oh, Colin Kaepernick, what's he got to say? I scroll through. Oh man, Pastor E. Mace, he's up there. Might check on his thing. I gotta scroll through. Oh snap, who else? LeBron got to be on here somewhere, right? Okay, UCLA basketball. On and on and on. First thing I do in the morning, and in most mornings I'm having to fight this scroll. And I don't know if you have been there like me, but that scroll is crazy. These things are taking my attention because they're things that want my affection and they want my attention. See, we and every morning there's something new, and every one of them screams at me and says, "Hey man, look at me, pay attention." We live in a polytheistic culture that manifests itself through an algorithm that is always trying to get my attention. And if I'm not careful, the athletic display of LeBron James or the potential problem-solving power of a gadget takes my attention and takes me away from the reverence of the one and true God that we say that we serve. And so for a brief moment, I want to talk from the thought and the commandments. We're going to look at commandment number 1. Don't let anything get in between you and me. Don't let anything get in between you and me. And so, man, as I was thinking about, man, these things that take my attention and affection, and I was thinking about our passage today. It's from Exodus chapter 20. It's the first 3 verses, very brief, and I'm going to read. I'm going to read from the English Standard Version of the Bible, and it reads like this. And God spoke all these things, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall have no other gods before me. Grass withers, flower fades, but the word of our God shall stand forever. Don't let anything get in between the way of you and me. And so before we get going here, as you can well imagine, we're going to be talking about idolatry, and we're going to have to look at what is idolatry. I mean, because the word is thrown around, and many things are said about idolatry. But a basic definition of idolatry, and this comes from Martin Luther's Catechism, larger catechism discussion of the first commandment. It's this: idolatry is whatever your heart clings to for ultimate security. I showed you my Twitter feed because when I woke up, what was the first thing I did? I looked at my Twitter feed. There's something in that feed that I'm clinging to for ultimate security. And Jesus ain't in that Twitter feed. Trust me. And so there's something there. And I'm just looking at myself, and y'all ain't got no idolatry problem. So I'm just going to unpack this for you, okay? But there's something in my heart that is clinging to whatever's on that Twitter feed for ultimate security, And so idolatry is whatever your heart clings to other than God to for ultimate security. And the questions that you would ask yourself, things that you would say, things that you would want to know in order to get to the bottom of it. The ultimate thing here is that idolatry is whatever your heart clings to. Okay, so as we get to our text today, we're going to talk about these people, ancient Israel. They love their idols. They love and expect and admire their idols. Circle, square, underline that. They love their idols. Love their idols. So they are, and we know this because the text is crazy. If you've been journeying with me through Exodus, you realize these people have been on a journey. God has taken them out of Egypt, a place where idols are bound. Man, when you come out of Egypt, as with many ancient nations, they acknowledged that there were many beings that one could worship. They were poly, which is many theistic gods, many gods in nature. They worshiped this god for rain, this god for sun, this god for the harvest. Then there's this god that would make sure that you're fertile and come out to be able to bear children. Israel has come out of this same culture, and they're showing signs every day of their grumbling, idolatrous ways. They have no spiritual direction. They have no vision. They will give themselves to anything and anybody at the moment that will make them feel good. Stop right there. We see evidence of this in the 32nd chapter, where Moses leaves for 2 seconds just to go talk to God for a second. And they make a calf and they throw the calf a party, and then they vibe out to music and worship of that doggone calf. And they do this in the frequency of Mu. These folk are in trouble because these demons they are worshiping are taking everything and leaving nothing in return. They've got no spiritual integrity, and they're not going to last out here in the desert by themselves without any direction, because anything just running. They are running after a new love every week. Wait, that's another message. I won't get there. But similarly too, we love our idols. We love idols. There is trouble in our land. We have a many God culture. We have images that we worship while we scroll. How many of us are being controlled by the algorithm? Do you know that advertisers and marketers understand that the algorithm, and when I say algorithm, I'm talking about the social media algorithm, it has power. How many times have you been looking at something and all of a sudden the next day you see sales and advertisements for all those things that you were looking for? And how many times did you press, yeah, I want to look at that sale date? They understand the desires of the human heart. They understand the idolatrous nature which we all have. We are all looking for something to cling to ultimate security. And if I'm a salesman, I'm an advertiser, I'm a marketer, I know how to talk. I'm going to figure out how to get you to see that the thing that I have will give you ultimate security. Hello, iPhone. So we love idols, right? They got a nice shiny product that appeals to your soul and you're ready to buy it. We don't make our gods with our hands anymore. We just buy them from China through Amazon. You're confused. You feel drained. You feel penniless. You feel like you ain't got nothing in your pocket. Well, that's what idols do. They leave us drained, and they leave us restless, and they leave us tired. And here, Yahweh, God, in our text, is the only one who gives and needs nothing from who he gives to. He is worthy. See, their money and jobs and political parties, ideologies, they compete for our attention and affection too. Whether you're Christian or whether you're not a Christian, we're particularly susceptible to idolatry. See, we've gotta look at sin differently. Sin isn't just breaking the rules. We sin anytime we do something when we let me say this a different way. Our problem is that we are looking at something other than God for your ultimate happiness. See, sin is not just quote unquote breaking the rules. In fact, that's the surface. Sin is literally at our heart's desires when we believe that there's something else that can give us happiness other than God. See, underneath sin is we've been rejecting the true God who gives ultimate satisfaction for created things that we think will give it to us. And so whenever we're struggling with anger and anxiety and doubt and frustration, there is something underneath that we believe is more ultimate, that we believe gives us more security other than God. I told you that we love our idols, but give me a second here. I'm doing a little bit of teaching today. And for those of you who are like, man, break this down for me. Help me understand what is idolatry. Let me know that you're still with me. All right. So watch this. We believe we don't make our idols with hands anymore. In our capitalistic, consumeristic society, we buy our idols from China through Amazon. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. All right, but watch this. So idolatry. If what's up, Oladi? How you doing, man? Good to see you. If we buy so if we seek power, right? Power is an idol. And how do you know that power, capital P, power is an idol? Well, your greatest nightmare will be humiliation. Your greatest nightmare will be humiliation. You will feel humiliated, right? The people around you will often feel used. They'll feel used. And there will be a sense of anger. Your problem emotion will be anger. Give me a second, y'all. Trying to get my stuff together. All right, there we go. All right. So if you're seeking power, your greatest nightmare is humiliation. People around you often feel used, and your problem emotion is anger. So when we're trying to diagnose what are our idols, these are some idols, common idols that folk deal with each and every day: power, approval, comfort, control. And shout out to Tim Keller for this great illustration. But when you seek power, right? Because a lot of us are like, oh, well, we good, we ain't got no issues, we got no problems, we don't have idols. But I'm trying to give you a diagnostic tool so that you can, just a sample diagnostic tool, so that you can diagnose your idols. What if you love approval, the approval of the crowd, right? Your greatest nightmare is going to be rejection. The people around you will often feel smothered, and the emotion that you will often feel is cowardice. You will be afraid to do the right thing because it's not popular or it's not pleasing to the people you think you got to please. And so right there, approval has become capital A approval. It has become an idol. All right, let me keep going. I'm trying to do a little teaching, y'all, because I want you guys to. So now comfort, right? Comfort. Your greatest nightmare is being stressed and having demands, and you know that you got comfort or want a comfort idol because the people around you often feel neglected, and then your problem emotion is you're often bored, right? And these are symptoms of someone who's struggling with a comfort idol. Last but not least, control. Janet Jackson would say losing control, right? Your greatest nightmare, no, she's in control. That's it, sorry. Your greatest nightmare is uncertainty. People around you often feel condemned. And your problem emotion is worry. And so when you begin to look at your idols, you can't just look at, oh, I did this wrong, I did that wrong. You've got to look underneath the behavior to understand what was it that you were feeling in the moment. So I yelled at my wife, right? And this is for an example, what I've done in the past, so we just using it, right? And just for example, right? And my greatest nightmare is to be humiliated by her. And then my problem emotion showed up and it was anger. But see, here in this moment, I'm saying my sin was yelling at her, but that's not what the sin of idolatry, that's not how it manifests itself. You got to go underneath the emotion or the activity to figure out what is the desire. See, underneath the activity of yelling, underneath the emotion of anger, underneath that is this desire to have power, this desire to say, yes, I got it, right? And so that's the thing that I'm actually struggling with, because I can not yell at my wife, and watch this, I can not be angry at her, but still have a manifestation of a power idol in my life, and it will show itself somewhere else. So a lot of times we're looking at the surface sin or the fruit sin, and we're not looking at the root sin. We're not looking underneath the surface to figure out what it is. Let me write that out. A lot of times we're looking at the fruit. If I can spell, y'all, forgive me, y'all. I'm having some little technical difficulties. All right, there we go. Fruit. Right? We're often looking at fruit. But what we need to look at is root. Down with fruit, not fruit. I hear my wife down there talking crazy to me. Not fruit, root. Right? We're dealing with root. Okay? You got to look underneath the surface, underneath the hood. A lot of times we're comfortable with just looking at what it is that we think is happening on the surface. But idolatry, again, is not something you're going to necessarily see on the surface, because most of us don't have wooden idols that we're giving praise to. Some of us do. Most of our idolatry is factored in our heart, and you've got to do the necessary root work in order that you can bear real fruit. And instead of focusing on the fruit sin and never really getting to the crux of where you need to be. Well, anyway, so as we move on, what are your idols? What's driving you right now? What have you placed in between you and God? And how do you answer the question, life only has meaning if I have or am X, Y, and Z? Whatever that is, whatever you put in this blank, whatever you think goes in this blank. If I have power, if I have control, if I have a man, if I have a woman, whatever you think goes in this blank, and y'all, my writing's terrible. Don't get mad at me. Whatever you think goes in this blank, and however you answer this question, whatever you think you have to have, that is your idol. I'm giving y'all some diagnostic tools today, okay? I don't want you to go without being able to apply this particular commandment to your life. What is it that is getting in between you and God. And whatever that is, we want to root that out, and we want to figure that out. What's keeping you from fulfilling the Great Commission commandment, Great Commission and the Great Commandment in Jesus Christ for his people, for you? What is that thing? All right. So moving on, y'all. Good news is this. This is good news. All right. Even though we love our idols and Israel loved its idols, the Bible lets us know that Jesus is devoted to his Father on behalf of undevoted Israel, on behalf of undevoted Israel, that Jesus is dedicated to his Father. I want you to catch this, because what happens is through the years, Israel is undevoted, but there is this one Israelite that fulfills this law. And the law is simply this, that you shall have no other gods before me. But before I get there, I gotta help unpack this a little bit, because Jesus shows us what it means to put God above all else in giving his life on our behalf and fulfillment of the prophecy of the law. When we think of the Ten Commandments, we think, okay, these are the things I need to go out here and do. In Alabama, they took the Ten Commandments out of schools, and this is way back when, and there were people who were protesting them taking the commandments out of schools, that we're taking God out of schools. That's not necessarily how the Ten Commandments work, because the Ten Commandments in one swoop could be looked at as things to do, but you got to understand those 10 commandments, y'all. I'm teaching a little bit today, so we're going to go into some overtime. The 10 commandments were originally given to Israel. So we read the history of the giving of the 10 commandments. You and me and everybody that is listening to my voice, you were not there when the 10 commandments were given. They were given from God to his people. So what we read is a history of God giving the 10 commandments to Israel, so that if I've come to faith through Jesus Christ, unless I was there at the time, those were not given to me. The way these apply to us is a little bit different than it applied to them. First of all, the law, or what God gave as the law, was more than the 10 words, as the Hebrews would say. There are over 600 particular prescriptions that are within the Old Testament. Tons of them, right? And these are just this is almost like the preamble, if you will. And most importantly, it wasn't given to you. Turn to your neighbor and say, it wasn't given to me, right? Some of you just looking at the phone, so it wasn't given to you. All right. But watch this. The law is prophecy. The law is prophetic, in that it helps point to somebody who can fulfill the law. Let me put this in some English. Let me put this in some English, okay? Me, you, and everybody else, we all trying out for this basketball team. Coach says he's only got one spot left, and we're all hustling. And the coach says, look, in order to make my let's say he has a team. He says, I got room for everybody. In fact, that's the better analogy. I got room for everybody. But here are the requirements of making the team. You got to be 6'8". You got to run a 4.4. You got to jump 40 inches in the air, and you got to be at least 260 pounds. Every one of us who hears that says, wait a minute, these ain't requirements for making a team. This, even if you didn't know that he's talking about LeBron James, there's something within your system that's going to say, wait, there's not that many people on the planet Earth that can do that combination of things. You're actually not looking for us. You're looking for somebody that we don't, that your prescriptions for who can be on your team are prophetic. Because once LeBron James walks in the door, all of us are going to say, you were always looking for LeBron James all the time. Wait, I'm going somewhere. Let me finish, right? So when God gives the 10 words, the 10 prescriptions, and all the other 600 some odd words, this law is prophetic, because when the person who walks in, who fits the description, who is able to fulfill all the promises of the law back to God, when he walks in, we say, oh, you weren't looking for us all the time. You were looking for Jesus to manifest his glory into the world. Oh, you were studying on us, God, because these commandments, you said, yes, a man has to fulfill it. And to be on my team, you've got to be able to do this thing. So that when we see Jesus walk into the scene, we say, oh, that's who God is looking for. That's who we ought to glorify. That's who we ought to give praise and honor to. And everybody else in comparison is in shame. That's what I mean by saying the law is prophetic. That when the man who walks in, who actually embodies and fulfills everything that God has placed, we all can say, this is the LeBron James of the law. Or let me say it another way. This is the Jesus of the law. Because Jesus perfectly fulfills the law and does everything that that dad wants him to do, so that when the Christian or anybody else who wasn't there, and even those people who were there, we read the 10 commandments, we are to read them as prophecy. So that when you look at Jesus' life, when you see Jesus living and breathing and manifesting his glory, you say, oh, that's who we ought to believe in. That's who we ought. Jesus is never going to show you that he's going to break the Father's law. Jesus is the true hero of the Bible. And let me say it a different way. Jesus is the true hero of planet Earth. How many times have you put your faith and trust in a man, thinking that that man or that woman was going to be the manifestation of the glory of God? You know you got that inside of you, right? And every time you leave with what? Disappointment, because you've placed your hope in the wrong person, place, or thing. Stop looking at nouns and stop looking at the noun, the Jesus the Christ. The law is prophetic. Okay, I know you with me, all right? All right, so then watch this. So that when Jesus, the true Israelite, shows up on the planet, he can now stand in the gap for all the other Israelites who have fallen. Because when he lives the life that we should have lived, or sorry, let me back up. Israel should have lived, right? God can count his life towards any Israelite that will believe in him. Let me say it a different way. There's this little scandal about test taking, and these rich people would send these test takers in to take the test for their kids. Now, we here say that's illegal, but God, in his infinite grace and mercy, says it's legal in my book. I'm going to send Jesus as a man, as an Israelite. He's going to take the test of the 10 commandments. He's going to fulfill those commandments, and he's going to do it to please me, but also to do it as a substitute for all those who would get out their pride and think that they, so here's the issue here. Most of us think that we're good people, And when you think that you are a good person, you're actually getting in the way of the prophecy that God has for your life. Okay, I need to unpack that. I know. I need to unpack that. What am I saying here? If I think that I am fulfilling the 10 commandments and all the other 600, first of all, if you read the rest of them, you realize you ain't fulfilling them. But when I believe that I am meeting God's standard, I'm getting in the way of the substitute test taker, because in order to pass the test, you need 100%. As Hezekiah Walker would say, 99.5 won't do. And so when I admit and acknowledge that I have not fulfilled the law, I have not done what God has asked me to do, and I need a substitute, I need a savior, Jesus comes in the gap and says, I've already fulfilled that on your behalf. I have not only lived the perfect life, but I've lived the perfect life on your behalf. And so the difference between a saint and an ain't is our pride. Pride is the enemy of hope. Pride says, I got it. I don't need them. I don't need anybody to fulfill the law. I'm going to take these 10 commandments. I'm going to do them myself. I got this. I've never had no other God before him. You're a liar. Because when you woke up, what were you looking at? What were you, where did your mind go to? What was the first thing that you did when you got up in the morning? A lot of times, man, the first thing we do in the morning belies what happens in our heart. It shows what happens in our heart, right? So here it is. Israel is struggling with idolatry through its history. It's thrown out of its land because it doesn't love its God. But however, Jesus shows true devotion to his Father, his people, and his land by giving his life and rising to now be Israel's and the world's true God if they will listen. Jesus is so devoted to the covenant that he gives his life in obedience to the Father. He doesn't put Satan or his reign or his glory or his body in front of him and in between his Father. Nothing gets in between him and his daddy. And so Jesus lived the life and received the covenant blessings. Jesus received the covenant curses for Israel's lack of devotion and died on behalf of Israel. Jesus is not only great for Israel, Jesus is great for us so that we don't have to be. Jesus is working all things out for our good. He knows every tear and every hair. He takes care of us so we don't have to look for somebody else to do it for us. And as I close, so around this bend, oh man, my thing went too fast, y'all. Jesus is devoted to his Father on our undevoted behalf. Jesus is devoted to his Father on our undevoted behalf. It's always been good news. That has been the motivation. When you look back at the passage, give me a second, y'all. I'm still teaching. I'm still in the middle of it. All right. Just give me a sec. When you look back at the passage, he says, I am the Lord your God. He doesn't say you shall have no other gods before me and keep moving. Very clearly, there's something he says right before he gets into what Israel ought to do. He says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, who out of the house of slavery. What is he saying? He's saying, I've already saved you. This ain't about your salvation. Here's some good news. I love you. And there's nothing that you can do to change that. Here is what you can do in response to my already cemented love for you. You're not doing these things in order to get my love. I already love you. He's very clear to give you the gospel in front. He says, I loved you and I brought you out on angels' wings. The motivation for him giving you the law was always grace. It was never about you being a good person and getting the approval of God. He says, I already approved of you and I brought you out. So that what I am asking you to do is to love me, not so that you can get my approval, but to love me because I'm worthy. Romans 5:8 will say this, because Jesus is the perfect embodiment of this. When Jesus gives his commands to us, Jesus says, look, I've brought you out of the wilderness of sin, out of the slavery of sin. And I'm asking you to obey me, God, because I am worthy, right? D's and R's have never loved us. A bride should never chase anything that is not chasing it, because Jesus considers you his rose. Jesus is devoted to his bride, and we are his bride. We are loved, and we fulfill that commandment by loving people like us and loving people unlike us. Jesus is the model of what it means to have true devotion to God. And how did he show? He transformed that commandment by obeying God to the point of death. So that what it means to love God above all else means to love God with even our life. We give up our life to fulfill his mission, as he gave up his life to fulfill ours. Devotion to God means the sacrifice of our lives, to sacrifice our lives to what means something to him. People around me are created in the image of God. And what does it look like to sacrifice my life for them, that they may see the Lord more fully? We are loved, so let's not let anything get in between us and the one who loves us. Jesus not only fulfills the commands, he transforms the command. Because one might ask, what does it mean to put God before all else? And the rabbis might have one thing to say. The philosophers might have one thing to say. The priests might have another thing to say. The Sadducees might have another thing to say. But Jesus doesn't just say what it means to love God above all else. He is the embodiment of what that means. He transforms it and says to love God above all else is to give your life on behalf of the mission of God. And he transforms the commandment by showing it to mean that loving God above all else means to sacrifice your life. So for those of us who are looking and trying to understand what it means to fulfill the first commandment, to love God, to put God, to not have anything in front of God, in between our relationship with God. When we're looking at that thing, we ask the question, man, what does it look like for me to lay my life down for the God who has already laid his life down for me? All right, y'all. Listen, are there any prayer requests? My prayer is that this was helpful, that you were able to see and savor what it is that God wants from you in this life. But to see and savor that the law is a prophecy, a beautiful prophecy that Jesus is the embodiment of the law. And that when we look to him, we see what it means to love God. We see what it means to have nothing in between us and God. And we see that, man, the byproduct of that was grace for us so that we can be gracious to other people. Y'all, if you've never given your life to Christ, I'd invite you to do that today, to simply say to him, look, I have not been what you've called me to be, but I'm resting and relying on the life, the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, so that I may be seen to be approved by God. Guys, I am thankful that you guys have had an opportunity to be with me today. And man, if you or someone you know wants to help us take the brotherhood, so take the neighborhood of the Trey and make it into a brotherhood. We have plans in the next few weeks to create a multi-generational, multi-entrepreneurial, multi-discipleship complex. And we're going to be showing you some of that vision in the next few days. We think we will be done by Easter. I don't know. And so we're going to, once we break ground and finish, we've broken ground, finish it, we will be officially beginning our safe gatherings. And we'll also be doing some work in our community to holistically disciple those people who not only want to be spiritually fed, but also want to make a living and a life on this side of eternity. So if you want to help towards those endeavors, you can go to www.resurrectionhouston.org and you can make that good. For those of you who may be needing anything from me, man, you can email me at pt@resurrectionhouston.org. If there was a guide here or a chart here that you wanted, you can email me there as well, and I'll do all that I can to help you. Man, look, do me a favor. If this was helpful, if the broadcast is helpful and us continuing to do this is helpful, man, hit like, hit subscribe, share the video. We're thankful for the blessings that God has given us in this season. We've got many things planned in the future. I don't want to take up the broadcast to talk about that, but I'll be looking to hear from us in the next few days as a result of the things that God is doing in the church and also in the life of our community. All right, take care.